All right, good evening, everyone. My name is Greg Ganzel. I'm the last presenter, and I'll be talking to you about my workflow, well, my background and my workflow for my capstone project. Let's see if this is working. Here's a little bit about me. I have a bachelor's in economics from the University of Illinois. I have associate's degrees in intelligence operations and Arabic. I will be graduating with an associate's degree from Wake Tech this December. So this is my last class. My employment history, I was in the Army for 5 years as an intelligence collector, and I also was a contract DoD analyst for SAIC up in Virginia for 4 years. I've spent about 2.5 years in Iraq and Afghanistan doing a lot of analytics and analysis, geospatial, qualitative analysis, writing up reports, briefings. What I came to this program for was to get a lot more experience with the numbers, with what businesses are doing, just being able to apply this in the real world. And so that's what my project focuses on here, is my real world application of what I've learned. Currently, I'm a data analyst at Isimo. I've been working there for 6 months, approximately. Isimo is based out of Apex, and we do data integration and visualization using Tableau. We're a Tableau partner. So a lot of what you'll see in here is kind of working with Tableau because I already built the data sources with Tableau. Certainly you can do a lot of this with other programs, which everybody has covered very well tonight. So like I said, the project overview, my sample workflow, some sample calculations, and the way ahead. So first, when I was selecting this project, I wanted something that was real world, like I said, and I wanted something that a client could use, that they would have the desire to take what I use and change their business and improve things. And I also wanted something, a lot of my clients right now are associations, and membership is extremely important to them. And so this kind of fell in my lap as, this is one area I should focus on. And so one of my clients, the focus of this project is a relatively large association, nonprofit that has an interest in understanding who their members are and why or why not they may or may not renew their membership. And so my goal, and I'm going to read this directly, my main goal is to improve understanding of membership retention by modeling membership renewal decisions using various measures of customer activity. So the idea is that based on what the customer's been doing over the last month, year, 2 years, that we can make some sort of estimate of their probability of rejoining or staying with the association. And also I wanted to get a good estimate of my level of effort to do this again in the future. Not just the predictive modeling piece, but connecting to the data, cleaning the data, all these things that we've talked about that can take quite a bit of time. And so a list of my deliverables, I want to develop a interpretable predictive model. So not a black box model. I want something that I can say, these are your top variables based on what I've done. And I'm going to provide that analysis to them and then also implement the model to score members in the future. So here's my workflow. I'm going to spend quite a bit on this slide because this is what I've been doing for the last 3, 4, 5 weeks. The key point here is that it starts out with the business problem. And the key was understanding, which customers are they looking at. Not all their customers have to renew. So whittling it down to which ones are renewing. They have a variety of different types of memberships. And so understanding that and dealing directly with the client, talking to them in meetings where I actually built these data sources, it's something that I started out with and I'm certainly going to revisit at the end and keep it in mind as I work through. The data sources, most of them I built already in Tableau, connections to Microsoft SQL Server, membership, event history, products, messaging. These are all the measures we had of how the customer's interacting with the actual association. And Google Analytics is in progress. They do have some data in Google Analytics, but they haven't gone in yet and connected that data to their customers. So that's on the wish list here in the next month or two that we can bring that in at the customer level as well. And so I've spent a lot of time here in the data prep phase because all these tables in the data warehouse that they have anywhere from 0 to 500 or more records for one customer. And so it's really about transforming that into something that I can use in our models, which has got to be one record per customer. And so I've been using Tableau to do that because I already have the data connections built. You could certainly do it, and we've done it with R, with SAS, with just Microsoft SQL Server could be used as well if you're good with SQL. So a billion different ways to do it, but the best way for me right now is Tableau. The first step was coding the response variable, and this was quite tricky because this particular client, their data was not great going back. Right now is good. Everything's great. They're getting, they're keeping all the records, and when somebody changes or they have a new membership, they keep that record. But before, they were overwriting all those records. And so it's very hard to look back and say, well, what was somebody's member status 3 or 4 years ago? It takes a lot of work to kind of finagle that out. So I've also been working on the feature extraction, and this is where I'm going into all these different data sources and developing the code to give me just the one row. Some examples of these is how many messages the customer's opened in the last month or year, or how many messages they've clicked on in the last year, how many products they've purchased, when was the last time they purchased a product. It goes on and on and on. Really, it's going to be a matter of talking to the client, understanding, which I've been doing, understanding which ones are important to them, starting with those, but when I revisit the problem at the end of this, there may be some that the client comes up with. There may be some that were completely worthless that I'm going to throw out. And so that's one of the things we've been covering pretty extensively. Investigating the variables in Tableau. We jump over to the data integration piece. For this, I'm using Alteryx. And just the way the workflow is set up, it's difficult to use a whole bunch of columns in Tableau. You're limited kind of to 16 in one data table. And so I've got a whole bunch of data tables that I'm pushing into Alteryx, and I'm doing joins by their ID. Some of them don't have ID, so I'm using email. And I'm also using fuzzy matching, which is kind of looking at variations in the name. There's a node in that for Alteryx that I'm hoping to catch some of the missing values. And I think missing values are going to be one of the biggest challenges with this project because number one, it's going to limit the models you can do. If you keep the missing values in, you can't use all the models. And I forget who mentioned it earlier about the logistic regression, not taking, I forget who it was, but at any rate, it was you? Okay. Well, exactly right. So, that's one thing I got to keep in mind. If I keep these missing values in, there is no data for a certain customer in the learning management. That's going to limit what models I can do. If I just draw that customer out and delete the record, how does that affect the model? And it may be important. Having that missing value, that's in a way, it's a measure of their activity. If they have missing values in all these different data sources, then they're probably not active. Although it could be possible that I'm joining on an email address that isn't good because they put the wrong email address in for their learning management system. And so these are all things I need to take into consideration, and I'm going to bring back to the client and say, these are the problems I ran into. What do you think about this? I'm hoping that they'll be able to address some of those, in the next iteration of this. When it gets to the predictive modeling, I'm going to be using SAS Enterprise Miner and Alteryx, and I do have the student license for SAS, and we've been working with that in class, and so I'm looking forward to that. And then I have a license through Isimo with Alteryx because they're a partner with Tableau, and so I can use that, which is based on R packages. They have a lot of analytics in there as well. And once again, I'm looking to do an interpretable model, something that I can provide some qualitative analysis, talk about ways they might be able to change their engagement with their members or their messaging or maybe bringing more members to more events. However they might approach it, I want to provide some ideas to them that they can narrow in on some business practices. Of course, best modeling practices, these have been covered very in depth here, everything from splitting to a train, validation, test set, cleaning the variables, the pre-processing, centering, scaling, dealing with near zero variance, all these things, that's my next month. And we've been covering it, for the last 2 years in class, so I'm confident I can do it. But, that's kind of at the end of this process. There's been so much work that's gone into the beginning of it that's kind of put the perspective on, my level of effort and what needs to be done. The more that's done on the front side, the more data sources that have been built already, the more time I have to do this part. And of course, refining and improving. I've mentioned this a few times. This is not going to be done in a month. I'm going to have a model for them in a month, but it's going to have to be revisited. We're going to have to see how we can improve it. Here is some code. It did come in pretty clear. This is in Tableau, and this is using what's called the level of detail calculations, which is fixing it on the member ID or the customer ID. And this is essentially the same thing as a group by in SQL. I'm just trying to get everything down to one value for each customer. And so this top one is a nested if and only if that's going to get you to the customers that expired within or were up for expiration within a certain time frame. And the emphasis I want to do here is that this code, I didn't learn this in Tableau. This code I've picked up over the last 2+ years. A lot of this stuff is used in Excel, variations of it in R and SAS, and the syntax might be a little different, but it's essentially the same logic. And so that's one of the things we've learned in this program is kind of the logic and how to approach engineering these features. So the way ahead, meetings with the client. I'm meeting next week to discuss this and see what other ideas they have for features. I want to refine the data set because right now I'm looking at a whole lot of members over a long period of time, and I want to narrow that down and eventually get that to something where I can use this every month or every few months to look at just the members that are expiring within that date window as far as scoring goes. New data connections, I mentioned Google Analytics, and there's a couple others that they're toying with, some of their event-specific data that we're definitely going to try and bring in. Improving the existing integrations, and this would be, like I said, with Google Analytics, as well as the learning management system, getting those member IDs into that system so they can be used, 100% accuracy. And then streamlining the implementation. This is kind of long-term, because this approach I have right now is really for the first round of this, and it's not going to be the best method. Once I've narrowed it down to 15, 20, 30 different predictors, there's going to be a lot better way to do this that I can automate, get a process going. They're already using Tableau, so we could use some R that there's a connection with there that would make things a lot easier for them to use. So that concludes my presentation. I hope you all enjoyed your evening.